the line there is kind of blurred anyway.
Yeah.
I know, from what I understand, I think DHL at least is a personal sponsor of his that he has brought to Roall over the years. TW Steel may also be. But he's had that same kind of gambit of sponsorship for the better part of a decade or so across multiple different teams and manufacturers. Well, we could go from somebody maybe moving up in the world to a better manufactured car to someone who has retired.
That sounds like a logical step.
Yes.
Johnny Molam is apparently hanging up his suit and helmet at the end of the year.
After 18 years.
God, don't you just hate it when all your heroes start retiring?
He's been at... Oh, God. That made me feel old. Okay.
Yes, your entire lifetime.
My entire lifetime he's been racing.
Jack, I'm going to give you a piece of world advice here. You will feel old. This will be the first time you seriously feel old, is when there are... Actually, you will have already hit this, but
yes.
It's when you get professional racing drivers pop up who are younger than you.
Yeah.
The first time that happens, it's a real kick in the stomach.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening quite regularly now. You got Matt McMurray and
Max Verstappen was the one I was thinking of. Oh wait, he's younger than you.
Yeah, so is Matt McMurray.
Anyways, Johnny Molam.
So yeah, effective after Petit Le Mans this year, he will be hanging up the helmet from his professional career, apparently to focus on coaching young drivers.
And probably showing up there at the revival every year in a E-Type or something and drifting the fuck out of it.
Something very enviable.
Yes, I have a feeling that it'll be quite inevitable with the history of sports car drivers who have retired going to Goodwood.
I mean, could you imagine him and TK fighting it out?
Again.
Ooh. Anyway.
Give it a year and a month or so. Or a year and a week? When is the revival? It's this weekend.
This weekend.
This weekend.
Ooh.
They are.
Yeah, about
Give it 12 months exactly.
Yes. So, I am not terribly certain, but I do... Go ahead.
Speaking of the revival, I have an entry list.
Oh, good. Let's go over that. Because, frankly, let's go over a list of cars that are far too expensive for any of us to ever own, but...
I can go over the St. Mary's Trophy, which is the feature race this year for Austin A30s and A35s.
Ooh, now we're talking.
The St. Mary's is normally my favourite at the revival, and I dare say it's probably Cody's favourite as well.
Oh, by far.
Yes.
All right, so to go through all of the star drivers in this, we have Gordon Shedden, Tom Ingram, Matt Neal, Darren Turner, Anthony Reid, David Brabham, Oliver Gavin, Corinne Shandok, David Coulthard, Mark Blundell, Tom Christensen, Rob Collard, Sam Tordoff, Rupert Keegan, Nick Manassian, Rona Eltonen, Stuart Graham, Tony Jardine. Tony Jardine? Wow. Sir Chris Hoy.
Wait. Rona Eltonen.
Yes.
Holy crap.
Yes.
I'm really excited now.
Tony Jardine, Sir Chris Hoy, Tiff Needell, Steve Soper, Rob Gravitt, Jason Potato, Paul Radish, Jan Lacey, Andrew Jordan, and Robert Huff.
Interesting. You left off a name there.
List.
He's left off a name that is normally at the revival with his son, but I only heard the son. I heard Andrew Jordan, but not Mike Jordan.
Yeah. I haven't heard anything about Mike in quite some time because Andrew Jordan has even been working with the Goodwood organization doing their little films and things of him driving some classic cars for their YouTube channel.
Yes, I remember him. There was a video of him racing the 1999 Renault Laguna, the green one.
Yes.
Pretty car.
He's made quite a few now, and if you haven't watched them, go watch them. He talks you through a la Tiff Needell and Derek Bell back in their touring car heyday, speaking into a microphone while driving a car. It's quite phenomenal stuff. But I think his dad is kind of more behind the scenes now than he ever has been before.
Am I the only one who remembers Derek Bell doing that for back when it was Speed GT?
Yes.
Oh, that was wicked.
And by yes, I mean I do remember that.
The only one.
So there's two of us.
So the one that comes to mind for me is Mike Hawthorne in a D-Type Jag around Le Mans. on a day I think the roads were actually open to the public.
Correct.
I know the piece of footage you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was 1956.
So, yes, this entry list. Who is driving what?
Those are all either Austin A30s or A35s.
Because they've shrunk the St. Mary's Trophy into essentially kind of a 2-car spec race.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, have they created another one for all of your Jags and Cortinas? And
No, the St. Mary's Trophy is like the feature race every year, from what I understand.
Well, yes, but it's always a touring car race, not just an Austin race.
Yeah. So, for example, in the St. Mary's Trophy last year, you had Ford Cortinas, Mark II Jags. Theo Pafitas from Dragon's Den was racing a Ford Anglia. You had Minis. You had a couple of Ford Fairlines. You had a Mercedes 300 SL, a couple of BMW 2002 Turbos, a couple of Alfa Romeo Giulias. You know, a right mixed bag of stuff.
So if they've done, I mean, I have heard that they're Austin race, but I will be mildly depressed if they've gotten rid of the rest of the touring cars and it's just
Me
those.
too.
Oh, looks like they're going to have a British stock car race, or at least demo, this year.
What do you mean? Define. Be more specific. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not familiar with this.
So last year, they did a giant parade with a bunch of Land Rovers, and they also did was it a gasser thing? An old dragster thing where they set them all up on the start line. They'd all do a burnout and then just do a slow lap. And this year, I think it might be with British stock cars.
Okay.
Now, for those that aren't aware, and this is me going from vague memory here, but British stock cars are either actual stock cars, as in like random Ford Focuses and whatnot, bought from stock and then tuned to buggery and had the drivetrain swapped to the rear wheels and all sorts of weird shit happened to it. Or we have these very big, like, sort of go-kart RC car looking things.
They look
where
like
they have these
our
giant solid steel front bumper, back bumper, and side bumpers that protect the wheels. And it looks essentially like an old Dakar buggy.
Yeah.
With its armor around it.
Your stock cars look like our World of Outlaws cars, just stretched and squished a little.
Yeah, because they go on tarmac, not dirt. But yeah,
So in our parlance, they'd be very small 4-cylinder powered super modifieds.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Think an old Dakar buggy that's been given the Mad Max treatment.
It's got
Without
flamethrowers
spikes.
on it? Yes. Thank you. I was completely unaware of what British stock cars were, so thank you for enlightening me.
Yeah. Oh, and our ovals turn right because we drive on the left-hand side of the road.
Because why not?
Jack, can you choke up on your mic?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Better.
Okay, good.
You got very Dalek there for a moment.
You did too for a bit. But anyway,
Right.
what else is going on at the Rival? Do we have any more entries?
We have the Whitson Trophy, which is for the big boys. All your GT40s and early McLarens and
Okay.
Lola T70s.
So will that be the one that contains a certain Mr. A. Newey, most likely?
I can find which race he's in.
Yes, because he's normally there as well.
It'll be something in a GT40.
GT40 or an E-Type.
Will there be one Rowan Atkinson?
Rowan Atkinson is in the St. Mary's Trophy this year.
Of course he is. He's normally races a Ford Falcon, if I remember rightly.
Which is funny because he should race the Mini. Or McLaren F1. No,
He
wait,
should race a Mini.
no,
He needs to race
no,
a
wait,
Mini.
he just crashes those. My bad.
He needs to race a Mini.
Oh, too soon.
Oh, that would be brilliant. Mr. Bean racing a Mini.
Her.
Yeah, him doing it in character as well.
Do you know what? If he did a post-race interview,
As Mr. Bean.
Just pulls up in the pit lane and they convert it into like a banana shop or something. Just pulls out.
So looking
gets
at
a
the
banana. I don't know why banana shop was supposed to be in mind, but we'll go with it.
so the first race of the weekend is the Kinrauer Trophy, which is the Saturday night. It's a race from dusk into night, and that is going to have your Detroit 250s and your Aston Martin GT4 Zagatos and your Cobras and E-Types. And one Mr. Andrew Frankel of Motorsport, their road test editor will be in a E-Type. Alan DeCadney in a 250 GTO.
Ooh, that's exciting.
That is very Richard Atwood in a 250 GT short wheelbase. Frank Stippler in a 250 GT short wheelbase. Derek Bell in a 250 GT short wheelbase.
Very nice.
Roger Wills in a DB4 GT. Rob Huff in a DB4 GT Zagato.
Ooh. Really, some really nice names and some really nice cars.
Very nice names, very nice cars.
I want to go to the Revival desperately.
You realise... Wait, what would be closer for you, Jack? The Revival or the historic festival that happens at Laguna Seca?
Currently, it would be Laguna. When I was in
Atlanta, he moved farther inland.
When I was in Atlanta, it probably would have been pretty close.
Well, second race of the weekend is the Goodwood Trophy, which is for all of the your interwar Grand Prix cars. So your ERA or your small displacement, your Voiturette cars, so your ERAs, your Maserati 8C, 4C, smaller Alphas,
and Altas.
Alpha.
No, I know. And Altas.
Oh, I thought you were just being an asshole and making fun of my speaking.
No, like HWM Altas that Sterling Moss drove when he was young.
Yes.
So then up next is the Magic Cup for your very, very small, tiny prototype things like Elvis Mark 7s and Lotus 23s. The shit where the roll hoop is bigger than the car itself.
Yeah, those are the sort of cars where the driver looks like he's about to fall out.
Yes, he's very much
fenders and doors in the way.
Very much on the car, not in the car.
So the next thing I have on the list is the Barry Sheen Memorial Trophy, which has such luminaries as John McGuinness, Steve Parrish, Troy Corser, Maria Costello, who's a very...
Let me say early on, we're not going to talk about bikes, and now we're talking about bikes.
Too late, it happened, shut up.
Yeah, it's classic bikes. Classic bikes. I'll allow it, because of classics.
Kevin Schwantz, Scott Smart, who is I believe he's a British Superbike. Yeah, he's British Superbikes.
Scott Smart and Scott Speed need to get together and be teammates.
Oh. Scott Speed can keep playing in the dirt for all I care. Dirt and sometimes
I just
tarmac.
meant for their names, that's all.
Then up next is the St. Mary's Trophy Part 1. The St. Mary's Trophy is divided in two parts. First of it is the all-amateur drivers, and the second part is the all-pro lineup.
So we're less likely to get crashy stuff in the second race.
Good. Shouldn't crash classics.
Indeed.
They don't make them anymore.
You should rate, well, yeah, they're classics.
I mean, all I gotta do is fix them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I don't. That's the big thing that everybody argues about historic racing is, they shouldn't race it so hard because they'll crush it and break it. And
they're already not original.
They're already. I mean,
every single one of them has been modified. They run laps that are 3, 4, and 5 seconds faster than they did when they were new.
They run laps that are 1 and 2 seconds faster than they did the previous year.
They are pro touring cars at this point. I mean, come on. Even tire technology alone has come along giant Earth to the moon size leaps and bounds from where it was before.
And if anybody listening has not followed much of historic racing in the past, go pick up some of the British classic car magazines like Classic and Sports Car, Thoroughbred and Classic, those kinds of things. I think Alan DeCadney still does something for Octane, I want to say.
He does do something for Octane, because I remember picking up an issue last year.
Right. Well, and the thing is, pick up these magazines for, every month for maybe a couple years. Every few months, you'll get somebody either writing in a letter or one of their people, like Alan DeCadney, who's active in historic racing, write a column about the cheating in historic racing, because all of these cars are modified. There are parts on them that have been completely re-engineered, but it's legal. I am not intimately familiar with historic racing rule books, but none of them are original. If you were to take, let's say, the conversation we had a couple weeks ago, which unfortunately was lost in the annals of the internet to corrupt files.
The ether took it.
That was episode 1.5.
We spoke at length about the 56 Jag D-Type that just sold at auction for, what was it, $23.1 million or something?
21.3.
Had a dyslexic moment. But that car, we had a discussion about, will the new owner use it at a place like Goodwood? Well, it is in completely original condition. Even if they used it at Goodwood, it would lose, even though it's the 1956 Le Mans winning car, because it hasn't been modified like every other car has, which I still find mind-boggling. But, I mean, oh well, just like when they were new, you race them now, you have a bit of a smash, you fix it. These guys are massively, eye-wateringly wealthy. So any part on that vehicle that needs to be fabricated as new can be.
And will be.
Right, exactly. So even, the gentleman who unfortunately went, I believe, bottom first into a pedestrian tunnel last year, and I think a Formula 3 car, thankfully no one was injured, can rebuild it. It's not that hard.
Just takes time and money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So, race 6, the Levant Cup, has a lot of Fraser Nashes in it, a couple 328s, some smaller capacity Bristols. So, your general 40s and 50s, smaller capacity sports cars. Race 7, the Woodson Trophy, as we explained earlier, it's your big bangers. So you got your Ford GT40s, your early McLarens, Lola T70s, your Bizzarinis, basically all the stuff that you would have found in very, very, very early US RRC and Can-Am competition, for those of you in the US. Number 8 is the Freddie March Memorial Trophy, which appears to have a lot of 40s and 50s, sort of middle and larger capacity things. Got a C-Type, some Ellards, a 300 SL Gullwing with Jochen Mass driving.
Ooh. I've noticed my audio for most of the beginning of this is going to be me going, ooh, ooh.
Yeah, Jochen Mass was racing a BMW 2002 at the Silverstone Classic this year with Steve Soper and a Cortina. It was fun to watch. Steve Soper bombed through the field, took, I think, second or first, and then his car went bang.
Ooh. That's never fun.
No.
Okay, race 9 is the Chichester Cup, which is all a bunch of small post-war single-seaters. So your Formula Juniors and stuff like that. Basically, they're cigars with people in it who are bigger than the car itself.
And Lotus badges, for the most part.
There are some, but there's a lot of Elvas. There's a Lola, Marilyn, Alpha, Elva, a Terry, or whatever that is, a Gemini, some Lolas. Up next is the Richmond Trophy, which is looks to be bigger Formula cars of that era. So I got some Maserati 250Fs. A couple Scarabs, which our American audience will love to hear. Lotus 16, Lancia D50, which will be amazing to see with those big side fuel tanks. So it looks like all immediate post-war Grand Prix regulation change. Up next is the race 12 will be the St. Mary's Trophy Part 2. 14 is the everybody's favorite Saturday night, the RAC TT celebration, where you're going to find your Ferrari 250s, your E-Types, your Lister Jags, Corvette looks like, E-Types, Cobras, you know, everything. Some of the most famous racing you'll find at the Goodwood Revival.
Yeah, that's kind of overtaken the St. Mary's Trophy as the flagship the past 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. Looks like we have Nick Manassi in a 250 LM, Gavin in a Stingray, Andy Prilux in a Tipo, in the Maserati Tipo 151.3. Sean
Is he allowed to
Lynn.
race another manufacturer? Surely he'd have to race a GT40. Joke.
That would be quite a meeting. Oh, sorry, I have to drive a GT40. It's required.
Oh.
No, if I must.
Chris Harris in an E-Type, which will be delightfully nutty to see. Jerry Halliwell's husband in a 250 GTO.
Christian Motor.
See what I did there?
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Matt Jackson in a Stingray. John Lacey in a Cobra. Frank Stippler in another Cobra. Nick Padmore, who's a very, very fast English historic racer, in a Stingray. Jimmy Campbell Walter in a 275 GTC. Sam Hancock of Jota fame in an E-Type lightweight. Andy Newall, Dickie Means with Rob Huff in an E-Type. Sean Lynn in an E-Type. Matt Neal in a Sunbeam Lister. Jackie Oliver in an E-Type. Christian Horner. Oh, sorry, Mr. Jerry Halliwell. Andrew Jordan in a 63 Cobra. Guido Vandergaard in a 63 Cobra. And Ollie Bryant and Andrew Smith in a Cobra. Next up would be the Glover Trophy, which is for more small, sketchy single seaters, which you wouldn't find me fitting in or driving because I like my legs too much.
No, I think, Pat, you would only be able to race a Ford Falcon, Ford Fairline, Mercedes 300 SEL.
I don't fit in open wheel cars. That's for damn sure.
Exactly.
At least I'm not poor Chris Neifel, who was 6'5", 6'6", and raced in kart.
That's a question. Cody, how tall is Matt Neal? Because he's up there.
Matt Neal? Oh, Lord. I think he's between, like 6'3" and 6'5". He is an absolute tree of a man.
6'6" is being
Oh,
told.
wow. I underestimated it.
There we go.
All right. So the next
He's
race,
pretty
16, is...
Pat, how many more entry lists are there? Because the revival goes on for so damn long.
Yeah, we could. The rest of the show could be devoted to reading out car names.
Can we put an entry list in the assets?
Yeah, I can put it in the description.
That's entirely possible.
Makes note to put it in the description. Thank you.
Excellent. Right.
Okay, I'm sorry for boring you all. Let's move on to something
it's not
more.
boring.
It didn't bore us. It's just it could go on for forever.
That's the beauty and the curse of the revival.
Yes, because it does go on forever, but it also goes on forever. All right.
So, moving on from a bunch of racing in a track in England, we will move down to literally the other side of the planet, to Down Under, Australia, where Cody, I believe you have some information for us on a certain track down there and what it plans to do.
I ran across a little link this morning while I was at work. Something we've known about for a while, that Queensland Raceway out in Ipswich, Australia, has been looking to invest a lot of money in their facilities. That news came out back in, I think, June or July. And they're planning on sinking about $220 million into the facility, which, for anyone familiar with Australian motorsport, like supercars, Australian GT Championship maybe, knows Queensland Raceway is Brands Hatch Indy stretched but flat. So it's basically, let's see, I'm looking at an aerial photo. It's left, right hairpin, or sorry, left hairpin, right, left hairpin, left, and that's it.
If every corner was Druids, and it was flat, that would be what this track is.
Exactly.
Can we also link a track map in the description of the show?
Yes.
We can. I can give you a track map verbally. Take a paperclip and bend it 90 degrees twice.
Actually, if you give me...
So it's two Martinsville stuck together.
I was about to say, it's more Brands Hatch and Martinsville had a baby in Australia.
There is genuinely a part of the track, because they're linked in a couple different spots to make like a North Circuit, South Circuit, and that kind of thing for club events. There is actually a Martinsville on one side of it.
Pat, if you put a track map in the Discord chat, I'll put it on the screen so it can actually be on screen in the video, in the podcast.
That'd be fun.
Yeah,
Technology.
I know.
Anyway. The point of this whole story is that the Ipswich government is kind of colluding with the circuit on this for tourism purposes. They're going to sink in $220 million. And the real kicker that has come out in the news today, thanks to speedcafe.com, is an Oran Park-style crossover bridge may be incorporated into the new track layout that they're designing. So Oran Park, being another Australian circuit that has been lost to history quite some time ago now, was a bent-up figure 8, and the track crossed over itself over a bridge, and it was one of the most iconic little sections of circuit in Australia. Unfortunately, now that is a housing development, I believe. The track is completely no more. So for all of these years since that happened, we've wanted some kind of character back. And of all the places to do it, this is like prime opportunity, because Queensland Raceway is just kind of featureless. Flat 90-degree corners and hairpins and such. So it says here, an addition would also likely take place to the left of the current Turn 1 area and leave the majority of the existing layout untouched. So somewhere around there, they're talking about adding the bridge.
Hang on, wait. Which corner are you talking about here? Where would this addition be?
If we go down the front straightaway, down the pit straight, and we go through the left-hander at Turn 1.
Yeah.
It says the master plan unveiled by the city council is just a relatively simple loop added to the existing circuit with a 90-degree left-hand turn ahead of the current Turn 1.
Oh, here. Let's write a pit exit. Interesting.
Right. So
That's
it will be
not
an earlier Turn
sketchy
1.
at all.
Well, I mean, they'll reconfigure the pit lane too, of course.
I would hope so, dear God.
and for the viewers
Plenty of room.
and for the viewers of the video, the track map is now on screen.
Yeah, we're looking at it.
Yes. So now they can follow along with what you're saying, is what I'm saying. So it's not just, oh, there. They can now see. Sorry if you're just listening to the audio. The link should be in the description, if I remember. If not, come look at the video.
Anyway.
So yeah, they're just gonna, talking about adding in just a simple little loop there at the first complex to spice it up a bit. And maybe we'll have a little piece of Australian racing heritage back in our lives sometime next year.
That would be wonderful.
It would be. I miss that bridge.
More news out of Australia also this week as Simona Di Silvestro signs a contract with the series.
Yeah, this is an interesting one here because Simona Di Silvestro, bless her heart, love her to death. She's a wonderful person and a hell of a good driver.
Very good driver.
everybody has been blowing up and saying, "Oh, this is such a great thing," yay, females in motorsport. I know, naturally, the first thing the Supercar series does is interview Leanne Tander, Garth Tander's wife, who used to be a driver before she had kids.
She was a half-decent Formula 4 driver, wasn't she?
She was. Quite up at the sharp end there for a long time. But everybody's all gung-ho and saying, yay, women in the Supercar series. And we need to boil it down. The actual fact is she has a ride alongside Renee Gracie for the all-girl super team run this year by Nissan Motorsports and the Kelly brothers.
With their
at the Bathurst 1000. Right, they've made their T car into a race car for the Bathurst 1000. That's all well and good, fine. They did the same thing last year. And I think in a Holden.
And this was the car that was aptly named the Pussy Wagon. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned it. I didn't. I'm off the hook.
Still funny as hell. I'm sorry.
I'm quoting. It's fine.
That's true.
I'm just going to quote Australian crassness. It's fine.
Right, you're technically quoting David Reynolds, and so it's all right. But in all actuality, she has signed a contract with the Supercar series, not with a team. She does not have a ride for 2017.
That was the sound of Swinney falling off his chair.
Knocked my headset off accidentally. Continue.
Well played, sir. I think he was shocked that everybody is so happy over this, even though she doesn't actually have a ride next year.
Yeah. I'm just glad to hear you're okay after that fall.
Yeah, it sounded bad.
I'm surprised it wasn't Jack and his friend Jill tumbling down a hill.
Yeah.
Okay. Leave.
So this is a good point to move along. We have a couple of people who should be joining us any moment now. If you'd like to introduce them, Swinney.
You mean people that actually watch racing at the weekend?
We're now going to move on to our WEC segment, and we have a pair of we will call them experts. They are super fans to the extent that they are now experts in this series. We have one, Daniel Hounsell, which you should remember from episode 1. Say hello, Dan.
Hello.
Speak up a bit, Dan.
Say it a bit louder, please. And we have newcomer, who is a good friend of ours, one Paul Marquardt. Please say hello, Paul.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, so you two are here to talk about WEC and the 6 hours of Mexico. Go.
I heard you boys like Mexico.
Yeah, my connection is. Well, it seems that
I can't confirm, Dan.
Dan will be bringing us Mexico City coverage through a sound warbler. So while Dan sorts that out,
I can talk to you.
Mexico City was this weekend. WEC's new race. It was put on the calendar last year to the, if we're honest, kind of concern of the series participants because of inflating budgets. But the series itself offered to pay for the added cost of shipping. And in one word, the event was epic. Dan, what do you think?
I think Dan's trying to burrow his way to Mexico right now.
But from the 4 minutes of the race that I watched, it was, I haven't. That Mexican crowd loves their racing no matter what. I mean, they it wasn't the absolute batshit insanity we saw at the Grand Prix last year, but it was a very respectable draw for a sports car race.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the event as a whole. So the event takes place at the Hermanos Rodriguez circuit, which was redone 2 years ago for Category 1 improvements.
You could say redone. I say it's had its balls chopped off.
Well, either way, it was reformatted, if you will, to make it Category 1 for Formula 1, which the WEC jumped on and brought the FIA brought the WEC to that track. The event was promoted, interestingly enough, by a competitor's car in the series. RGR Sport by Morand, an LMP2 competitor, their amateur driver is Ricardo Gonzalez, who, aside of being second place in the championship for points right now, having led the championship early on in the season, he was also the promoter for. Excuse me, I am distracted by something that's coming across my screen. Anyways, so bringing it back to what we're talking about. So Ricardo Gonzalez had the heavy duty on his shoulders to not only race in the event and what that takes place and what that entails for a driver, but he also had 2 weeks worth of promotion beforehand. With that in mind, he pretty much had the fairy tale event. We'll kind of do this a little bit backwards. So for P2, RGR Sport, Ricardo Gonzalez, Bruno Senna, and Felipe Albuquerque won the race. They won the race that they promote, which is incredible. And the Mexican crowd went nuts about it. Do we have Dan?
No, he's gone. Continue.
Dan's gone, so I'm doing this myself. So everybody else can chime in here too. I can't do all this on my own.
Yeah, so the big thing I took away from that race was mainly a lot of brake failures, it seemed like. Like I remember seeing the G Drive car, go flying off into one turn because its brakes just went, nah, not doing this.
That's a very recurring problem with that car, and definitely the reason why G Drive will probably be running the Orica next year instead of the Oak on-road built P2 car, because I think they've had enough of it for about 2 years, ever since that brake disc failure at Brazil knocked them out at the final round to dash their championship hopes against the wall on the start-finish straight.
Do we have Dan Hounsel back?
All right, let's try this again. Dan?
I'm going with a no.
All I hear is a dollar.
Definitely gone.
Oh, hey, we got Dan. Hang on. We got Dan.
Hello?
Yay, we got Dan.
Okay, we have you for a limited time.
The wires have been sufficiently twiddled. Okay. Dan. Okay.
I don't
Dan?
have Dan.
Okay. Anyway.
No, I think technical difficulties are getting the better of us there, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So
people viewing the VOD will see I've put on the screen a map of the old versus new circuit. The green is the old circuit, the red is the current circuit. Again, just so you can picture it. Picture the changes we were discussing. So, back to the race.
Yeah. So, yeah, aside from the brake failures, there wasn't really much else I took from the race, apart from Toyota were vaguely competitive, which was nice to see.
Oh, I disagree with that completely. I said Toyota was remarkably competitive. Their race pace was fantastic compared to the practice and qualifying pace, which I think that just highlights, we're going to talk about P1. The P1 takeaways are pretty straightforward. One, Audi threw that race away.
As they have done every single time they've been in contention this year.
Yep, I completely agree. I don't know if Lena Gade left and took the mojo with her, but they have thrown away a substantial amount of races this year.
They're like Ferrari without Ross Brawn. They just don't know what they're doing anymore.
It was kind of funny. As soon as Lena left for Bentley, they almost win the spot 24.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I ain't saying it's all Lena, but I'm guessing it's probably a lot of Lena.
I'm going to say it's all Lena,
Good
but...
chunk. So, yeah. So, Paul, do you want to quickly run us through the GT fields as well and what happened there?
Well, I think we really finished P1. So, aside of Audi being foolish, I do think Porsche, surprisingly, with them being the most reliant upon turbochargers, which would
ordinarily benefit them the most in an altitude circuit.
With Audi and Porsche kind of back and forth with each other, I was surprised because no P1 team really had it easy this weekend. Toyota had a driver missing. Anthony Davidson injured himself in a massive crash at Magny Cours in testing.
Was he testing a motorcycle at the time?
He wasn't.
No,
he was
playing
testing
tennis.
a TSO50.
A BMX bike?
And then Benoit Trier from Audi in the number 7 car, he had that back injury from cycling from before the Nürburgring this summer, and he was still injured. So they pulled him out of his car, even though he was slated to race. And really, Porsche was the only team that came to the Mexico City race with no major issues going into the weekend. I think Porsche, like many times this year, have gotten lucky. I think Porsche got lucky when Audi had its ride height blown at Silverstone. I think Porsche got lucky when Toyota blew their engines at Spa. I think Porsche got obviously lucky at Le Mans, enough said.
Enough said.
And I think Porsche got lucky this weekend with Audi making a couple of poor choices. I mean, it really wasn't even poor choices, was it? You know, Audi just made some driving mistakes. They had some reliability issues on the 8 car with a wheel bearing that blew and gave Oliver Jarvis the scare of his, summer. And the other car, Andre Lauderer, and I went back and looked at this with a couple other of my friends, and we can't remember the last time Andre Lauderer made an unforced error. If anyone wants to dig up that stat, you're more than welcome to. I could not find the last time that Andre Lauderer brought up, had an unforced error. And that really was the race right there. Andre Lauderer was shot from a cannon in that car after that round of stops and was catching the Porsche hand over fist, which was on the wrong tire. So I really think Audi had an opportunity there to win it. And when Lauderer came into the stadium section, locked up and hardly even nerfed the wall, but it cost him 30 seconds with only an hour to go, which is just an insurmountable amount of time in the type of competition that's in the series. So, yeah, Porsche won P1. I think they got lucky, like I said earlier. In GT...
So what's your...
Oh, go ahead, Pat.
I was saying, so what you're saying is that Audi turned into Mazda this weekend.
Yes, Audi pulled a Mazda.
Some strange
like, didn't they?
No, I mean their IMSA prototype effort. They're fast as hell. They have some strange driver and reliability and mechanical problems that ultimately screw them out of a race win.
Yeah, completely agree. GT saw even more interesting stuff. So we're post Le Mans EOT, which is the WEC's version of BOP. And I think everybody, myself included, expected Ford to be dominating the way they have basically since they released the sand, released the Kraken.
There's a button. There's a button on the steering wheel for that.
Yeah. Aston Martin absolutely were spot on this weekend.
They had their mojo back.
They did. Somebody mentioned earlier today to me that Darren Turner had his first win in a couple of years. Nicky Team looked incredibly competitive. I really do think Aston Martin kind of had it their own way. And I honestly can open it to the group because I've been talking for a while now. I don't really know why Aston Martin did so well there. Do you guys have any theories?
I would assume the straight line, the giant straights would have had something to do with that, because Aston has always been a bit of a straight line monster over a handling car, mainly because of its front engine.
But it was shit at Le Mans.
Yeah, but that was before the BOP change, because the BOP change was for the Nürburgring, which gave it more horsepower.
Good point, touche.
I'm going way out on the proverbial limb here. I might be talking out of my ass, probably am, because, that's how I roll. But anyways, I would have to say that Aston's performance this weekend probably had to do something. That car doesn't carry a lot of downforce against, the higher spec 2017 or the higher spec 2017 cars like the Ford, and to a lesser extent the new Grade 8. So
downforce. Have you
haven't seen
the coffee table?
I was gonna say, yeah. You haven't seen the T-tray hanging off the end of that car, Pat.
Yeah.
Seriously.
I have seen it. Trust me. I'm just, like I said, I might be talking on my ass here, but I think that the reduction in altitude affected them a lot less than it did the Aston Martin, much like the Corvette, is based a lot around mechanical grip as opposed to aerodynamic grip. and that fact I think helped them overcome the aero deficiency this weekend in the very high air, whereas the Ferrari and definitely the Ford are a hell of a lot more aero dependent.
Well, either
Cody,
way, it is good
if you're
to
there,
see them.
you're free to come in and tell me that I'm talking out of my ass.
Either way, regardless of how they did it, it's good to see Aston win a race again, because it has been a really long time in GT terms.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah. So what about Am, Paul? Just to round it off.
Gotta give a shout out to my good buddy Ricky Taylor. Ricky rocked the weekend. Started the car, got the car all the way up into 4th or 3rd, and then they actually maxed Ricky's drive time right away. They put him. They put Ricky in at the start, and they ran him until he ran out of time to allow to be in the car, and got him way up the order. And then the AM got in and
lost all the spots.
Saw to eliminating that excellent stint before. Yamagishi, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, hit a Alpine. He spun in the stadium section and took out an SMP, I think.
So basically, he was a Japanese driver. Japanese amateur driver?
Sure.
An amateur driver in general.
But anyways, yes, that was kind of the story for me with AM. The Porsches were quick the whole race. That Proton Porsche does incredibly well in GTE.
It's how good was it to see Patrick Long back on the top step of the podium again?
Mm-hmm.
Especially, after kicking ass in the first part of World Challenge, having Effort Racing's funding dry up, moving to a new team, and then sort of kind of, disappearing off. Not off the face of the earth, but certainly not really that high up there anymore with O'Connell, Parente, Cooper at all. I know I'm the only one here who watches World Challenge, so y'all can just,
Well, I would if I
smile
could.
and nod.
I would if I could, because I adore those Cadillacs.
I'm pretty sure there's a way that you could.
Oh, I probably could if I really put my mind to it, but...
But yeah, so that's Mexico. It was a great round. The championship now heads to the Circuit of the Americas.
You guys, you're going to Coda, aren't you?
I am not going to Coda. Unfortunately. But most of the people on this podcast did go to Coda last year.
I didn't.
Anyways, yeah, the championship. Most of the WEC paddock is staying stateside on the continent. Lots of drivers in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York doing some sightseeing. Great to see Instagrams and Twitters blowing up with people seeing great stuff. It looks like we have Dan Hounsel, and there is one last thing I did want to talk about with Dan, which was the looming decision that the WEC needs to make about AM cars. We just talked about AM. Dan, are you there?
We'll try this again.
Hello, Dan.
Dan, you are muted, lovely. That is a critical piece to me being able to hear you, friend.
Now it should work.
There we go.
There we
That's
go,
a lot.
Dan Hounsel. Dan, let's talk about WEC and their looming decision about how they're going to or not going to frustrate a large amount of their amateur competitors.
Yes, finally I can be heard on here. So, yeah, they have to make a decision whether to allow the 2016 cars into the championship next year in the AM class, which is kind of a controversial decision if they do decide to allow them, because it means that the dominant car will be the Ferrari 488, because Corvette and the Porsche are not as up to date as the Ferrari. So it would effectively give Ferrari a massive advantage. The teams feel, an advantage too big to BOP almost. The only team happy with it, interestingly enough, is Aston Martin, if they decide to allow the 2016 cars into the AM class next year. Aston Martin said they're perfectly prepared to have their, I think the 8th generation V8 Vantage be homologated into that class. Sorry, GT8 Vantage, it's called. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been around a while. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yes, it's a little long in the tooth.
Yeah. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Teams are always going to lobby for what they feel is in their best interests, obviously. So, if they do allow the 16 cars in, I would not be surprised if it was all Ferrari show with a few Astons. Aston obviously hold their own well in the M class. In fact, it's their best class of the two.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But I would be surprised if all the Porsche teams stuck around. I know Gulf Racing and the Proton team definitely said they would leave, and the Gulf Racing team was kind of on the edge of their seat about it.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because the Proton team also confirmed this week that they would not run pro. So if the axe falls on the wrong side of the fence for Proton, then that's one less competitor altogether in the series. Which, if there is a complaint I have about the WEC, it's that a 30-car grid is not that big.
No.
No, it's not. But I mean, you don't want it to be too big because then you do limit the amount of wildcard entries at Le Mans.
Yep, that's true.
So we need to build more pits at Le Mans. Yeah.
So Dan, now that we had you, anything briefly you want to talk about? I mean, we kind of skimmed over everything because you weren't there. So anything you want to takeaways?
Connectivity issues. Good luck, person editing.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Says the guy that sounds 5 feet from his microphone.
Yeah, he does. LMP2 was the show for me with a couple of different, 3 different leaders in that class. I know we talked about the G Drive having a brake issue again, and then obviously RGR winning at home. I think the big question is, can anyone beat? Now had pretty much as close to a perfect record as you can get in a class as competitive as LMP2. They finished second, which is it's either their 4th or 5th podium in a row. I have to check that, but they
Fourth,
yeah. Because I know they had 3 wins. I'm not sure where they finished at Silverstone, but an incredible year for them. And I think it's down to their more than silver driver, which would be Gustavo Menezes in the 36 car.
and Dan, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and then I was just going to say, the LMP1 class also, huge battles there. I'm sure we talked about all the overtaking with Toyota finally being more competitive and Audi.
Well, we did just briefly talk about it. Toyota just, not that this is news to anyone, but that car is built for one track and it's in south of France.
Yeah.
And it is remarkable how poor.
Wait, I thought the
Le Mans
rally was northern France.
It is.
Yeah, Le Mans is nowhere near southern France. You said south of France.
Ricard is in the south.
Because I'm looking at a picture of. It's because I'm looking at a picture of the Monaco Grand Prix on my desktop.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
south. That's as far south as you can go when it comes to France, and then it's not technically France.
You get
I've always
you
thought
get any further
south, it's a nice area.
You get any further south in France than Monaco, and it suddenly gets a bit soggy.
And then it turns into Africa. Moving on.
Are we done with the geography lesson? Okay.
No.
So back to WEC.
No, yeah. I do think Toyota, it's remarkable. They'll be nowhere in practice and qualifying trim, and then just be essentially right there come race day. They still have the absolute pace of the German P1 cars, but I do think, I was mentioning this to Dan earlier this week, I think there's a couple tracks coming up that will favor Toyota. I think Fuji will do well for Toyota with that long straightaway. And I think Bahrain will play well to them.
It's really
Coda,
Shanghai, I think. That's always been a strong track for them.
Yeah, thank you. Coda, I think, will be a Audi/Porsche track. Probably Porsche because of them pumping out 8 megajoules. But, yeah. I mean, Dan, what do you think kind of going ahead now for the remaining races with P1?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely blown the championship wide open with Audi's increased pace at the last round. I think they've showed that they can be competitive with Porsche, which they didn't show that this time last year. It was really Porsche's championship to lose. I think it still might lean that way, but I think Audi is definitely in a better spot than they were. Toyota, it'll be tough to do much damage in the points, given their rough luck this year. But a couple of wins for them would definitely be a good thing for if no one else, the people on the board at Toyota, handing out the cash for that program, because they do need it, especially if they want to run a third car next year.
Which it sounds like is going to be a reality.
Yeah, which would be awesome for them to finally have that shot. They've been on the underdog for every other year with the 2 cars, first 3. This year they're putting, of course, and to have them have the advantage.
Yeah, and also too, we kind of have a Toyota. I don't want to say fanboy. That's not very nice. But a good friend of ours, Mark, he's a huge Toyota Gazoo racing guy, and he just messaged me and said that another thing too is that they're really that Baz and Toyota Gazoo are really unhappy with the high downforce kit. We should try to get Mark on an upcoming week. He could give some real good insight into Toyota and them winning the 23 hours and 57 minutes of Le Mans.
Yeah.
That they did, yeah. Another, if we're done with Toyota, before I go, I did want to mention a few other P1 teams, which are a little bit further down the order.
Well, here comes Rebellion.
Here comes Rebellion. An excellent race in Mexico, finishing 5th.
They had incredible pace. It was crazy watching them outdrag the P1 hybrid cars at the end of that straightaway.
They were on pace with them in the rain. Certainly that engine does pull its weight and more for that car. However, the big news coming this week that they may be making their 4th engine change in 4 years. I guess it'll be 3rd engine change in 3 years. They've had 4 different engines. Possibly going to the old Nissan 3-liter LMP1 engine, the V6 from the GTR LM that did not get much further than Le Mans 2015. But
part that actually worked on the car.
Sorry, what?
I said that actually worked on the car.
The part that actually worked. Sorry, I'm losing you a little bit. So to go, I'm not sure. Looking at, am I connected?
Yes.
Yeah, you're still there.
Okay. Looking at their track record of constantly changing engines and that being a problem for them in the beginning of the season, that might not be the best choice for them. But going back to 2014, when they first ran the R1, they had a delayed start and debuted at Spa that year with the Toyota engine, then switched to the 2015 spec AER for 2015, and then for this year switched back to the 2014 spec AER. So they've never really had 2 years in a row of the same engine, which has not always been the best thing for them. But there's nothing really to lose, given that they're always trying to just, I don't want to say be the best of the rest, but they're just trying to get whatever they can that when the factories kind of have reliability problems, such as the case with the difference in pace from the privateers. It'd be interesting to see what that Nissan engine does for them. I don't think it'll ever be completely on pace with the hybrids, but if it gets them a little bit closer, that's not the worst thing in the world either. Bicolis, with the same engine as Rebellion this year, had a mega start, passing both Toyotas before turn 1. That was a short-lived moment of glory, but still pretty cool to see that class with all 8 cars racing each other for once.
So, just to interject here with a silly little idea, Bicolis essentially did the Jeremy Clarkson thing of, I'm in the lead, I'm not in the lead, for that split second that they were in front of someone.
Well, you also, I mean, everybody gives Bicolis a lot of grief, but they are, I mean, if there was a contest for the most improved team year on year, Collis would have to be in the top 3.
Yep.
I mean, their car's only caught on fire like 3 times this year. It's incredible.
Considering how many times I've had to repair it, that's pretty crazy.
Well, I mean, the car melted to the ground on, what was that, Wednesday practice at Le Mans?
Yeah,
it was racing on Saturday.
They pulled 2 all-nighters to get it fixed, and then...
That's very good going.
Yeah. So anyways, I mean, Collis is, it's easy to make them the butt of the joke, but, I mean, they also passed Audis, Porsches, and Toyotas in straight line speed down that front straightaway. So they have hugely improved. And the drivers in the Collis is really good too. Ollie Webb and Pierre Caffer are nothing to joke about, along with
Simon Trummer.
Simon Trummer, thank you.
Yeah. Simon Trummer.
Anyways, that is what I have for WEC. I have to run out now.
Same here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, gentlemen.
Thank you to you two for knowing what you're talking about and being able to give such a concise overview of the race. So
let's not get carried away. We did talk. Anyways, you guys have a good night and happy podcasting.
All right. Thank you and good night to you two. So we will move on now from the World Endurance Championship to something a little bit more simplified, I guess you could say.
Talking about NASCAR?
We're going to talk about some NASCAR because whilst the Darlington throwback race was very fun in all of its pretty throwback liveries and everything, the race itself didn't seem, from the highlights that I've seen, admittedly, it didn't seem too stellar and exciting for a NASCAR race. I believe Martin Truex Jr. Ran away with the win over Kevin Harvick. The race, that's about it.
I watched some of it. The race at the front was, nah. Yeah. But back in the pack, I think it was like 3rd through 6th or 7th was pretty solid. Kyle Larson was holding his own. I think he's got a lot of confidence and a lot of...
Since that win, I can
self-belief so. Since that win, that dude is on fire, really hot right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So whilst there was that wasn't really the talking point of the weekend for NASCAR.
No, it was not.
The talking point was a bit lower down in the Camping World Truck Series.
You mean a bit higher up because they were at Motorsport?
Yes, they were a bit higher up because they were in Canada, sure. But specifically the finish. And for those that aren't aware, now, Cody and Pat, help me now. It was what? John Hunter Nemechek and Cole Custer?
Nemechek. Yes.
Yes. Okay, so they were racing each other pretty hard. And from what I've seen, it just looks like one overdrove his truck into the back of the other. No. But the other wasn't happy about it. If you've got a different opinion, then fire away.
Well, you see, that if you watch the video over and over and over and over the past few days, 2 things become apparent. One argument that says, okay, he overdrove the truck, yada, yada, yada. And this is in the next to last and last corners of the circuit. The other school of thought here is he just bashed him out of the way. And this is Nemechek coming up in P2 up to the back of Custer's truck and just walloped him up the backside and bashed him out of the way. And then they come to the final corner. Custer is still leading, and Nemechek drives into the back of him again and still turns into the corner, thereby turning Custer's truck to the left, facing the outside of the track. Both of these are kind of borderline visually, whether a mistake was made and he Nemechek overdrove the truck. But when it comes to the point that they exited the track onto the grass on the front straightaway coming to the flag, Nemechek did actually turn the wheel to the left to pin Custer against the barrier because Nemechek's nose was in front and he knew he would win. Period. You can see it on video. So he actually did attempt to hold back a competitor in an accident to win, which to me is inexcusable.
If that were my series, he would be getting a nice ban and wouldn't
He would be
driving
out
for the rest of the series.
Right. And the overwhelming reaction on the internet is like 90% of fans, even in comment sections on Facebook and, you know, racer.com and you name the source, fans saying, Jesus, guys, that was a little over the top. That was uncalled for. And about 10% going, Rubbin's racing. Yeah, but that wasn't Rubbin. He actually drove him off the track. He made a conscious decision.
That was malicious driving with intent to turn someone into the wall and knock them out of the race.
Correct.
Which I will say, in the past few years, has become a little indicative of the truck series in general. It seems to me that more fights and deliberate wrecks happen there than any other series in NASCAR.
Yeah, I mean, and part of that is you've got a lot of guys that are coming to head with finances and futures. And they're getting desperate because, you know, there's not a lot of financing left for these up-and-coming drivers, which is what the truck series is for. So you have a case where, in this particular instance, John Hunter Nemechek, who is the son of one of the nicest guys in all of NASCAR history, Joe Nemechek. I mean, phenomenal person. I desperately wanted to be a fly on the wall and in the hauler afterwards to have the father-son talking to go on in front of me, because I think we can all agree, and a lot of people across the internet have agreed, that is not a driving style that Joe Nemechek would have ever done. No. Because he was a hard but fair racer. And his son is at this point where he is trying to succeed in stock car racing in the United States. And there hasn't been a sponsor on that truck in I don't know how long. And he got desperate. And it didn't work. NASCAR gave him the win, and they let it stand because his truck crossed the line first. But they let it stand after, allegedly, I have not seen this on video, but many people have corroborated the story. There were people beyond that barrier that had to duck for cover because of flying debris, as these trucks were absolutely hammered down in the grass against the barrier trying to beat each other. Mm-hmm. And that is not a way you need to conduct yourself at a race. It is dangerous and, I mean, beyond unethical.
We are a strong concrete barrier and chain link fence away from the death of American motorsport as we know it, especially with this kind of pig shit asshole driving that we see in the stock cars today.
Yeah, the question is, though, now that NASCAR's let it stand and said, no, since he crossed the line first, he's the winner. When do we see this in the other series? When do we see this at Talladega?
This is a series.
That happened in 2009.
True.
This is a series for younger drivers. And admittedly, some of the older guys that have, I don't know, retired from the bigger leagues.
And Norm Benning once a year.
I don't know who veteran-wise is still there anymore, because I mean the likes of Tom Bodine and Ron Hornaday aren't racing anymore, are they?
It used to be kind of, you know, you had the old and young mixed together. Now it is mostly the young drivers. And this has specifically set NASCAR's version of a Supreme Court precedent that says, this is fine. Knock yourselves out, literally. And it's going to cause so many issues because, for instance, we've even seen earlier this year a Formula 3 race, I think in Germany, might have been Italy, was stopped. The entire event stopped because of substandard driving practices.
Oh, I want to say that was Italy.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was Germany or Italy. I know it was a Formula 3 race. But then you have in the United States in NASCAR, wholly substandard driving practices that are just purely psychotically dangerous. And it's rewarded. I hate the word slippery slope, but quite literally it was Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and they were on a grassy, slippery slope when they did that. And I put 100% of the blame on John Hunter Nemechek. The fight that ensued afterwards on the front straightaway, I am personally not a fan of that, even though I know a lot of people in NASCAR are because it gets ratings. But I don't even care about that in this instance. The driving took the cake. And like Jack mentioned a few minutes ago, if that was my driver, like if I owned that team, I'd have benched him indefinitely. I am in no way surprised that NASCAR is not benching him. And that is a problem to me.
Yeah.
Thought. Do you think maybe they're being a little, or rather very lenient on him simply because he has the surname?
No.
No? Because
not in any way.
I have noticed there is normally a little bit of favoritism for second and third generation drivers who come through the ranks.
While I will not disagree with you on it may not be a pattern in NASCAR, but it's a perceived pattern to those of us outside NASCAR that watch it. And I agree. But there's nothing in the Nemechek name that will make them enough money to warrant going lenient on him. Because while I love Joe Nemechek, he was never one of the big names.
No, this is true.
Nor is his son. They only have name recognition. They have no fiscal backing to that name recognition, as we see by the lack of sponsorships on that truck. Unfortunately. Yeah. Because, yeah, the kid can drive, and so could his dad. But if you conduct yourself like that, you have no business in a sport with 3,500-pound lethal weapons.
Yeah, it's unacceptable.
At the end of the day, yeah, highly unacceptable. And you're right. We are unfortunately, I think, standing at the top of a slippery slope. And whilst those sort of issues have been happening in the Truck Series more regularly than Xfinity and Cup, I do have that horrible feeling that we're probably going to see more of them and in bigger ways. Like, especially when we get to places like Daytona, Talladega, California, Michigan, where speeds are pretty high. And when someone gets pissed off at that high speed, then things start getting really dangerous. I suppose we should just be grateful that they were on a road course and they were doing, 40, 50 mile an hour around that corner, if that?
Yeah, that's not far off, probably.
Yeah.
And I mean, also remember, the Camping World Truck Series is the NASCAR series with a caution clock.
Oh, yes, I forgot about that.
So
I tried to put it out of my mind.
I know, so have I. But you have exponentially more opportunity for this, too, because they're artificially creating close racing.
Yeah.
So you won't. So, I have a segue here. If we want to move on to the next subject,
my only question my only question on it is, when do we say, okay, this point now is too far? Because there have been so many times where, yeah, but there have been so many times now where it's been, oh no, they never allow that, and then they go and allow it. And when do we say, no, this is too far?
If I may be blunt,
a death.
Well, yes. And
is it going to take someone getting rammed into the pit wall? I mean, what?
Even then, I question. Seriously, I am questioning even if that would affect it. Because at this point in history and the way NASCAR conducts its races and the way they want to promote their sport as predominantly entertainment over competition, I don't even think a death will change it, because a death will rake them in so much money. None of us want to see that, and I know the people at NASCAR don't want to see that, but there will culturally be a kickback if a driver dies, because it will be all over the news, and then people will start watching again. Because really, we might be in the 21st century, but the greater culture, if we take the lowest common denominator, is still turned on to watching motorsport to see somebody potentially crash and get hurt or die. That hasn't gone away. We have not grown up as a culture beyond that. And unfortunately, I don't think there's anything we can do about that. But the line has been crossed. For me personally, I would not stand for this stuff. But I don't know where NASCAR's line is, and I don't think anybody could even speculate where NASCAR's is, because so many of their decisions of sporting matter, not technical, but sporting matter, are so inconsistent.
They've really
so it's anybody's guess.
Can I speak, please?
Go on.
Thank you. NASCAR really has made the rod for their own back for this. And they have. Okay, I'm gonna start this over. Edit. But NASCAR has made this rod for their own back. But the problem is that they, as an organization, as a sanctioning body, as a body who promotes racing, not only for all the way down to your local paved oval, all the way up to the top stock car divisions, are not only not penalizing these drivers, but they are tacitly encouraging this kind of behavior by not offering any kind of punitive penalties for this kind of, quite frankly, criminally dangerous driving.
Yeah.
And and if this goes on any longer, we are seriously this close to having potentially not only the death of a competitor or a track official, but of fans as well. Because when you have, we saw it back at Daytona in the nationwide race a few years back when an engine block, Kyle Larson, it was him, and it was Kyle Larson.
It was Kyle Larson that mounted up onto the catch fencing.
Almost climbed it, and I'm pretty sure an engine block almost penetrated through that fencing as well.
And just to rewind the clock a little bit further, Talladega 2009, Keselowski's first ever win, where he didn't yield to Carl Edwards, making Carl Edwards go airborne and into the catch fencing. I believe I read a story a couple of weeks later after that crash about a girl who was in the crowd who had a piece of Carl's car hit her in the face, and she had to get, I believe, I'm going on very vague, shady memory here, but it was a part of her jaw grafted and rebuilt, where this chunk of metal had just taken it clean off. Mm-hmm. So we've seen stuff like this before.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it's...
if you look at a very similar thing happened last year at Mid-Ohio, when, I know you're all going to hate me for bringing this up, but when...
The Tommy Dreese incident?
The Tommy Dreese incident, thank you. And
Trans Am's made its appearance.
It had to, because it's literally the most...
It's pertinent.
It is extremely pertinent. When Tommy Dreese, after serving 2 drive-thrus, was about to be lapped by the leader, he turned into her and took her out after a few laps earlier, causing a crash between Doug Peterson and AJ Henriksen, I believe.
And he was subsequently banned for a year.
Subsequently banned for an entire... His SCCA license was suspended for a year. And, well, at the time, that penalty seemed rather rather small for an event that very well could have decided the championship, especially how close it came at the end. Looking back on it, it was actually it was a necessary one because they established the precedent. They put their foot down that they weren't going to tolerate that kind of bullshit from anybody.
Right. And it's like you're highlighting now, there are more parameters to an incident like this than just he wrecked him, yada, yada, yada. It's exciting. It's unethical. There's matters of ethics. There's matters of championships. There's matters of fiscal responsibility because of championships. There's matters of safety for the drivers. And no, for the record, I don't think any of the drivers are going to get hurt with the way, where we're at in car safety now. The fans or media members that are beyond these barriers are the ones that are going to be getting hurt. This is such a complex issue that has so many more ramifications that any of these young drivers are thinking about. And Tommy Dreese, in that case, isn't even a young driver. Dude's old enough and has been around long enough, he should know better. But I am almost moved into speechlessness from it because I don't see an end. I'm glad the SCCA stepped up in that case last year and put their foot down. I am very saddened constantly in my racing fandom and, historical research that people in NASCAR don't pay any attention to what any other racing series anywhere in the world do, ever. Some of the drivers will get up on, a Sunday morning, watch a Formula One race. But nobody within the NASCAR organization seems to pay attention to anything other than their own world.
It's the problem with them racing every weekend. They don't have time to.
Yeah, but
they're constantly moving. I mean, yeah, but they're constantly having to be moving, looking forward to the next thing. They don't have any time off, really.
Well, in which case, they have the entirety of an off-season to catch up.
Yeah,
right.
Well.
I mean, these people are the ones that are sitting in their offices on Facebook part of the day, as we all do, because that's a healthy work environment. You have to have, your little breaks every now and then. They can see that. They choose not to.
And the fact also is that they haven't learned from what has happened.
Right.
Past.
Because this has been happening from the very top level down, like you said.
It's been happening ever since Mike Helton said, "Boys, have at it."
Right. And that has started a top-down culture. Like, you know what's something that's really disturbing? The fact that some of these local tracks that are NASCAR sanctioned are harder on their competitors than NASCAR is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, once every probably 3-4 weeks, I'll see something pop up on, that maybe Ralph Shaheen wrote for National Speed Sport News or something that comes across Facebook. A story about some grassroots oval racing somewhere in the country. That a young driver, maybe even an old driver who's a hothead, will get disqualified from an event, banned for a race. It's been, I think, twice in the last few months that I've heard about a driver that has been banned from their local track for a period of time for substandard driving. NASCAR rewards it. These guys are learning from it because that's what they're watching when they're not in their own cars.
Yeah.
It's sad to see that such a robust sanctioning body like NASCAR is being, that they have basically sabotaged themselves from within by their own philosophies, and not only inadvertently, by their own choosing.
Yeah, pretty much.
And the sad thing is that I don't see them changing anything until something bad happens, until we have the NASCAR equivalent of a Justin Wilson incident or Dan Weldon Until something bad happens that provokes a response to that degree, I don't see anything happening.
I don't trust that it'll be the right response.
It won't.
Well, no.
So-
whilst we can all agree that original incident at Motorsport was completely and utterly unacceptable on all fronts, shall we move on to a bit more something a little bit more civilized, like IndyCar? Speaking of Justin Wilson and Dan Weldon, rather morbidly, IndyCar.
Yeah, so the Verizon IndyCar Series was at Watkins Glen over the weekend.
Fast as fuck.
Watch your mouth, man. Anyway,
Fuck that. No.
they were back at Watkins Glen for the first time since 2010. And since then, we obviously have all new cars and a reasonably new track surface. So I crunched some numbers while I was watching the race because I will admit Scott Dixon completely blitzed the field and won the race.
Spoiler alert, by the way. I don't care.
Well, I mean, we're recording on Wednesday. This ain't going up.
Oh, that's a good point.
Everybody
That's a
knows.
very good point.
If you don't know, get out front of the rock you're under.
I don't even care when this podcast goes up. If you don't know by today when we're recording, you're under a rock. But, I mean, at one point, I believe I saw on screen, he was 14 and a half seconds clear of second place. So it was a well and true Ganassi walkover with Scott Dixon.
Is it?
So
It's safe. Oops, sorry.
I was going to say, because the battle for the lead wasn't exactly enthralling, I was crunching some numbers. And I discovered that if the IndyCar race at Watkins Glen on the weekend would not have had the full course yellows, if no one crashed, it would have mathematically been the fastest road course race in United States history on average speed. Its lap pole speed that Scott Dixon set in qualifying was...
I imagine would rival some ovals.
Yes, actually, his qualifying lap was averaged at 147 and change miles per hour.
Wow.
Good
around
Lord.
a road course. And this is with the full circuit with the boot, by the way, not even the short course that NASCAR uses.
Blimey.
147 miles per hour. Now, to compare, the fastest ever road course lap in the world was Juan Pablo Montoya at Monza in 2004, when he went 161 miles per hour, average around Monza in a Williams.
That monster Williams.
Yes. That had superseded the Keke Rosberg's record from Silverstone in the 80s turbo era with 1,500 horsepower. So, we have Montoya at 161. Scott Dixon set a 147 mile per hour lap at Watkins Glen on Saturday, which is only about 12 and a little bit miles per hour different between a 2004 Formula One car, which, as we all know, technically was the pinnacle in Formula One speed, and a modern Indy car around a reasonably similar circuit in terms of flow. So it would have been the fastest average speed race in U.S. history. It is the fastest average speed pole time, I believe, in U.S. history. Cleveland might be close, but I don't remember what it was. And I also figured out that the average corner speed, like the speed that, you know, a car will carry through a corner of a road circuit, is actually faster in IndyCar at Watkins Glen than Juan Pablo Montoya's average cornering speed at Monza, on the order of about 13 miles per hour.
Wow.
I'm not surprised.
Well, Monza no downforce, but still.
Right. But there's still a fair few corners there.
Yeah, but
that are banked, I might add. So, I was getting a little bit nerdy. I kind of got a bit of a coner over that. And and really, even if there was no battle for the lead, it was a thrilling race to watch because they visibly looked so fast around that track. And
I mean,
there were a few incidents, but
I mean, I saw them at Road America, which was, nothing this side of a champ car has gone faster around there.
Right. The closest we've come mathematically to these cars right now were the turbocharged champ cars at Cleveland Lakefront Airport.
Which probably would have been 98, 99, I'm guessing.
Up to 2002.
Mm-hmm. But the fastest would have been 98, 99, 2000.
2002. That's why I said that year. That was the last year of an engine war.
Yeah, but they had pulled back the boost by then anyway. So, but moving on.
In any case, there were a few incidents, seemingly all of which incorporated Charlie Kimball. I think there's been a lot of people that have been very unfair to Charlie this week because there was an incident in turn 1 that ended Graham Rahal's race when he got together with Charlie Kimball, spun the car, and nosed it really rather hard into the barrier on the inside. Destroying the car, retired on the spot. He blamed Charlie Kimball. And then later in the race, a kind of scarier but less spectacular accident where Kimball was on the outside exiting the corner onto the back straight, and Will Power touched wheel to rear pod, and Will Power got nosed into the barrier to the left really quite hard. It didn't look spectacular, but he had a very hard hit. That was also blamed on Charlie Kimball. I personally believe that's a bit unfair. The kid was racing, The Graham Rahal incident, Graham quite blatantly squeezed him off track and onto a slippery surface. What did you expect to happen, Graham? Will Power did admittedly squeeze him to the outside again. What did you expect to happen? He's not going to just back off and give you the position. He had a better line out of that corner than you did. So the update on that is Will Power, second in the championship, retired on the spot, was evaluated for concussion-like symptoms again as he suffered earlier this year and had to miss a race. He has been cleared to drive at Sonoma this weekend. Yes, the IndyCar finale is this Sunday. So we're all looking forward to that. And thankfully, even though Will Power has had a DNF at Watkins Glen, he is still mathematically in with a chance to beat his teammate Simon Pagenaud this weekend. So we still have a good battle on our hands, but it is only a 2-horse race from Penske. Everyone else has been mathematically eliminated at this point.
So he's mathematically possible. So say Will Power won the race, how far back would Pagenaud have to finish for Will Power to win? Would you know?
It would be fairly far because the points difference are in. It's a double-digit points difference. I think it's 23 points between the two.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
But this race at Sonoma, like Pat just said, is double points.
Oh.
But everybody is scoring double points, so he's still going to have to finish fairly far back to let Will Power take the championship. It is possible, but certainly not plausible at this point.
Right. So essentially, it's well done, Simon Pagenaud, well done. But there's that small chance that Will Power could just steal it from under him.
Right. I mean, and we're talking Sonoma upcoming here, which is a very tight, very undulating track. So
fantastic circuit.
I hate it with a passion.
I love it. I love that place so much.
Sonoma either.
But so what we're going to look at this weekend as a preview is it will be definitely a challenging race because we are going to have a lot of traffic issues because Sonoma is going to be one of the circuits we're going to see the disparity between the Chevrolets and the Hondas exacerbated probably to one of the highest points in the year because it is a very ride height sensitive circuit with very large curves and undulating humps and bumps and hills. So it's got a lot of downforce that it needs, and the Honda's not good at that. The Chevrolet is. So if we have some lap traffic issue, because it is a very, very narrow track, you might see Simon Pagenaud get into a little bit of trouble if he's I don't think Penske will flub any pit stops. I think they'll be on game. So that'll equalize these two. But if we get some traffic issues or some poorly timed yellows that shuffle people back during a pit sequence, it might get really interesting. So that is our preview for IndyCar finale at Sonoma.
I've done the math, and the gap from first to second is actually 43 points. And if Power wins, Pagenaud has to come sixth. If Pagenaud comes sixth, he has to lead at least a lap. If he comes seventh, then he's lost it if Power wins.
Okay, so Pagenaud essentially just needs to finish top 7, and he's good.
Yeah.
Or top 6 to be safe.
Yeah. So possible.
If he finishes anywhere in the top 5, he's good. If he finishes,
qualifying is going to be key then.
Yes, it will.
Absolutely, especially at a track like Sonoma.
Right. Passing is going to be at a premium in the first place. So I'm excited to see that on Sunday. I'm really sad it's the last race.
I am too. This season has been the best in probably since 2012 or 2013 when the DW12 first came in.
I mean,
and we realized,
seriously, as ugly as it is, that is a fine race car.
And then we suddenly realized, holy fuck, IndyCar can race again.
Yeah. And I mean,
well, if you take them to the right tracks, then yeah, not dopey, too tight street courses.
Right. But shoot, even then, some of the street courses have produced some good battles too. I mean, I'll give them that. Overall, race on race the entire year, this has been, in the IndyCar series, some of the best racing I have seen so consistently my entire lifetime in motorsport. And it is a shame that it is not promoted well enough that people realize that.
Yeah, for those of you listening that aren't aware, IndyCar races are uploaded in full on YouTube on the official IndyCar channel. So it's actually really, really easy to go and watch the races.
And they're not geo-blocked as well because I can watch them.
They are not geo-blocked, means I can watch them, more importantly.
Right.
Well, IMSA geo-blocks their web stream in the US, so...
Yeah, but they're the only ones. Everyone else is so aggressive, no outsiders can't watch. I'm amazed I can watch NASCAR as easily as I can. But anyways,
me too. So yeah, anywhere you are in the world at any time you want, they are in their entirety on YouTube. Go watch Watkins Glen. It is phenomenal to see their cornering speeds. Seriously. So we'll look ahead to Sonoma this weekend. That'll be a lot of fun. And I guess to wrap up here,
is Scott Dixon...
What?
I was going to say, is Scott Dixon the best IndyCar driver of our generation?
Yes, easily.
Yes, absolutely.
Him or Dario?
Nope.
Yeah, I'd say Frank.
Not even close.
Wow, really?
Not even close. Dixon walked Dario regularly.
He did. Scott Dixon could have probably... I think Scott Dixon is good enough to have... If he had gone to Formula One, I think he would have won races, if not a championship.
I'm very glad he didn't.
I am too.
So, speaking of a bit of international flair, to wrap things up and kind of come a little bit full circle to our topics of Australia earlier this evening. Bit of a somber note, but a bit of a memorial. This week marks 10 years. Right? I think it's 10.
10 years, yes.
10 years.
Yeah. It is the 10th anniversary of the unfortunate, though fitting, passing of Australian legend Peter Brock, who died at the wheel of a Cobra Daytona Coupe replica in a rally.
Designed by Peter Brock.
I know, designed by his namesake, of all of the things. So it has been 10 years since we lost Peter Brock. We're about 1 and a bit months out from the Bathurst 1000, which I bet will be quite a Brock memorial yet again.
Oh gosh.
And I think I'll have to look up for next week's show who Craig Lowndes' co-driver is for this Bathurst. Because of any time he has the best shot of winning the great race again, it will be this year. Because if we remember, Lowndesy took the Bathurst 1000 mere weeks after his hero and mentor, Peter Brock, passed away 10 years ago. So I would think it'll be a pretty fitting full circle for him to do it again this year.
It would be incredibly poetic.
Yeah,
for sure.
Craig Lowndes is with Steven Richards for the Enduros.
Ah, okay.
Van Gisbergen has Alexander Prema, and Whincup has Paul Dumbrell.
Okay, so we're of any of the 888 cars that are going to be competitive for that win, it'll be Whincup or Lowndes, probably more Whincup.
Because Prema is definitely going to let the side down, no matter how brilliant Van Gisbergen drives.
Yeah, he never did get a handle on those cars.
No, he should have stuck to prototype racing.
So yeah, that has been our week in motorsport.
There is that, yes. And go on, Pat. One last thing.
We are 2 weeks out from the runoffs, and there's your club racing report for the week.
Thank you.
If you want any more, go read the latest issue of Sports Car, where they break it all down for you.
There we go. One last quick thing I'll add. In virtual racing, myself and a few of my cohorts here are part of a video gaming group that take part in championships online. We're called Llama Gaming. And our GT3 championship will be continuing this Saturday at Brands Hatch. If any of you aren't doing anything on a Saturday evening / afternoon / morning, depending on where you are, the races will be run at 10 p.m. UK time. Then by all means, join me on my YouTube channel, which, Jack, I'm hoping you can put a link to in the description.
Send it to me, I'll put it there.
Cool. Join me and you will have the onboard footage from my car, at the very least, as I live stream the race. I'd like to see you all there. And with that has been a podcast. Thank you very much indeed for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Now get out.